Federal government does not even have any state or any revenue. The revenue belongs to local governments and the states by extension. Distribution of revenue from the federal down to the bottom that is why we're having a serious problem. If the revenue is being generated by the state needs to use the revenue and sending some part of that revenue to the center. If all these things is being put in place, Nigeria will be a better place.
Federal government should allow states, every state or federation, to generate their money. This will enable the states to carry out some of their projects, some of their desired projects, instead of waiting for federal allocation from the federal government. And at the end of the day, there's nothing to show for it. Let's look at the margin, the ratio of sharing the sharing formula of federal allocation. The little will go to the 36 states, and the bulk of it will go to federal government.
I want the federal government to focus more on external affairs of the country than security. Then they should erase these concurrent lists. The exclusive list should be with the federal government. Then this concurrent list should be raised, and this they should give more attention to residual list. That is where Nigerians will benefit more. If you look at our states this time around, you discover that the federal government is not developing infrastructure in the state, and that is what we need now for us to grow. If the infrastructure is developed, then Nigerians will have something to rely on and move forward.
It's as advisable for the state to generate their own money, because state have its own project and federal have its own project. The social amenities the resources is owned by the state. So the federal government are using the state to make money. So I will advise the federal government, maybe they should stop using the resources of the state, and you stop giving the state allocation. Where the state gather the resources and the money they generate from it, they should give the government the commission out of it.
Absolutely. Okay, I still have with me Henry Boyo, economist. What do you have to say with the comments that ordinary Nigerians, have made there in Osun State?
Ordinary Nigerians are human beings.
Yes, and
the governance,
they understand. They obviously
the
seem
governance
to understand.
are not. They are not pro-people. There can be no doubt about that. Self-reliance is what a country is all about, not dependence. Unfortunately, we have cultivated the dependence syndrome, and that was certainly a drawback from military times when there was central command. Constitution, the same mindset of we will share. Well, things don't always happen the way you plan them, and fortunately, human beings don't have control over destiny.
Absolutely. Now, in practical terms, because what we're trying to achieve here is to find solutions, a way forward for the states. We know a state like Lagos State, for example, has been said over and over again as only one of the very few states, about 4 or 6 of them, that can actually stand on their own. Lagos State, for example, has the population that it can actually tax and all of that. What, in practical terms, like I said, should the states be looking at right now in terms of other sources of IGR?
You will recall that Lagos State became self-reliant as a result of dire straits in which they found themselves when the president refused to give them their allocations. They decided, well, to look inwards. Maybe this is the time now for other states to also recognize that in times of adversity, if you look closely enough, there are usually seeds of opportunity. And the seeds of opportunity that are there, first of all, to say, have we been overspending on things that are not of consequence, things that don't add any value to the lives of our people? Does it make sense to say, in view of the very paltry resources we currently have, to have 20 ministries in one state, and for each minister to have its own set of media advisor, this one advisor, special advisor, and all that. In spite of the reality that we are in a time of austerity, you don't find that many of the state governors are stepping back and say, instead of the 24 ministries that used to be here, we are now going to have only 5, maybe 1 or 2 of the states. You hear this kind of noise, but in general, it's more like we want more money and we want to continue to to spend as we used to. There are not enough instances where you find that state governors are actually taking serious steps to cut their own consumption, either in terms of the number of vehicles that are bought regularly. For example, we are aware of the spectacle of the 2016 budget being padded in many ways. Could that also be replicated in all the states?
But what you're talking about is cutting back.
You've got to cut
beyond
back.
cutting back, what other things, what are options are there?
Well, you cut back.
I mean, I'm sorry to cut you in here. I just recall what you just said now. You know, some projects that don't add
any value.
You know, little or no value to the lives of the people. I mean, you've heard of reports from some states that actually want to build airports.
Absolutely.
About 4 or so of them. And if you put the total of those airports together, about 150 billion, that's just a conservative figure. And these are ambitious projects, according to experts like yourself, that don't add any value. So should they be thinking seriously about looking at those projects that will add immediate, you know, medium and long-term value to the lives of the people?
Absolutely. The areas of the era of grandiose projects should certainly be over. It should be more like you crystallize on those, crystallize a vision for your state and say, my state should be the leader in IT or whatever in Nigeria, and then you try and create activities that would make your state a hub for that purpose. But you know, there are very few of the governors who are thinking in this light. It's still more the dependent syndrome of let us get more from the center. Let us let my share from the center be higher than before. And this, of course, would lead us nowhere. If each state is left on its own, well, put it this way, it would probably be more realistic under the circumstances because they say if where you're going, it's impossible to go there, you might as well retrace your steps, okay? States might decide to start looking at possibilities of regional cooperations that would help them to reduce waste so that instead of having so many commissioners, special advisors for each state, if 6 states came together, you would only have that much commissioners for the 6 states instead of that number being, you know, replicated in 6 other states. This would be common sense because you would now say you would be reducing the overheads in every region very significantly, and you'd be consequently releasing money that was formerly spent on maintaining these huge overheads in 6 governors' lodges in the same region, and deputy governors also lodges, and all this type of things. The amount of duplication and leakages that exist at the moment, if they are blocked, even at the federal level, people keep talking about the Mr. President's 10-strong aircraft fleet. Do we really need that type of thing? I'm not saying that is peculiar. I'm just saying, you know, as an example,
Yes.
you'll probably find the same instances in almost all the states.
And with some of these cutbacks that you seem to be, emphasizing, what you're saying then is that the whole idea that, hey, we're not able to pay 18,000 naira minimum wage would not even be happening in the first place.
It would never be happening because you're paying for how many messengers? In 6 states, you're paying for 6 messengers to do one job that one messenger could have done. I'm not saying you should abolish the states by any chance. I mean, even though that might be a much more sensible thing to do, but there could be opposites. They would be driven by force of circumstances.
Let me even be more direct, especially with the issue of 18,000 minimum wage. When many of the state governors say they're not able to pay, and some states like Imo State, has actually sacked some 3,000 workers and still plans to do more. But thankfully, Labour, made sure that Imo State reversed that decision by reinstating those 3,000 people. But then again, so the question is, how in real terms can we move from where we are right now so that maybe at the end of 4 years, Nigeria would be able to say that, look, indeed, the states, as the real drivers of the economy, have stepped to the plate?
Don't forget what I said earlier about the states themselves not having the ability, the capacity to be able to create an enabling environment. That's why you have a central monetary agency.
Why do you say that? I mean, one would expect that the states, in collaboration with the local governments, are the ones who actually will implement whatever vision that the federal government has in driving the economy. They should act as a catalyst. Shouldn't they be the ones, really? I mean, take the 2016 budget, for example. Can you talk about the success of that budget when it finally takes off without the major input of the local government and the state government?
I wouldn't for 1 minute divorce the relevance of the local government and the state governments. But I am saying that in reality, if those governments have to do what they call economic activity, okay, they would have to rely on an enabling environment that makes it possible for even the income that people are earning to have value.
And what will bring about that enabling environment? Shouldn't it be the states that will provide it?
The states cannot have how would I say, influence on inflation. The states have no influence on cost of funds. It's a central government agency that does that.
What about states like Ogun, for example? That seems to have done quite a lot in terms of attracting FDI, foreign direct, investment into that state.
What we find at the moment is what you call foreign direct investment. We still have to see these things manifest in the lives of the people of Ogun State. At the end of the day, if the foreign investors that you talk about find it difficult in order to be able to repatriate their dividends because they are not charity, and they have obstacles in the path of obtaining forex cover, or indeed, if along the line there is further devaluation of the naira, the income that these foreign investors had projected is cut in half. So these are the realities of an economy. It's an integrated engine which should be sparked with the things I have spoken about. You must first empower your people to have consumer power, to be able to buy things. If they can't buy things, who would invest? If nobody's investing, who would be employed? And if you don't have a facility or an environment where industrialists, even in agriculture or whatever, can go borrow at 4 or 5 or 6%, as the case may be, without having to say we are seeking special intervention funds. That is how you drive an economy. And no matter what the resources each state has, even if you take away that entitlement mentality, so long as that enabling environment is not there, they would labor. Indeed, you'd find, for example, that the income of everyone, state wherever, would continue to buy less and less. For example, when you also have a series of devaluation. In other words, we will box ourselves into a corner that we have to work twice as hard to earn the same amount of income that we
Okay,
earned
let
in
me
the
come
past.
back to the question I asked you before we took that break with Oshun, input. Should states be allowed to go out to, take loans? And should there be some kind of ceiling, a debt ceiling, and all of that?
The realistic thing to do when you are short of funds and when you have a genuine project is to borrow. But the point is, in the past, we haven't seen the impact of the borrowing that most of the states, including the federal government, the impact of their borrowing we have never seen in terms of infrastructure. We don't see the impact of the borrowing. We don't see the impact of the fiscal expenditure itself in the course of the year. In addition, the cost of borrowing is also important. A situation where state governments are borrowing at 14, 15, 16, 17%, that is not in the best interest of the people of the states, because state governments, just like the federal government, are sovereign entities. Their loans should not carry more than 3, 4, 5%. So there is too high a cost to borrow, especially when the enabling environment within which you borrowed is not really conducive. So I would say we should be very careful that state governments are not given, do not have a free rein to borrow, because the chances would be then they would not step back and say, where are the leakages that we can plug? What are the changes we can make in terms of administration that will save us cost? And we may never move away from that entitlement mentality, apart from the fact that future generations would have to bear the burden of such loans.
And that's where we'll have to leave it then. Economist, Mr. Henry Boyo, it's always a delight having you on TVC Breakfast, talking about the dwindling fortunes of Nigeria as it affects the states.